It's time for Elko, and we appreciate today's in-studio guest. He's representing, of course, area law enforcement. And for the last time, this is retiring Elko City Police Chief Tyler Trouten. Ty, the floor is all yours because Sheriff Itor had to make a trip out of town. We're sitting down to record the program early today, but welcome.
Well, thank you, Lori. A little bit bittersweet. I've always enjoyed these. It's always fun to talk about issues and try to get our messages out to the public, keep them informed. But yeah, this is the final one.
The final stretch for Chief Ty Trouten. And just to recap for listeners, you started with Elko City Police Department as a patrol officer.
Well, I actually started in late 97 as a reserve. Was still working for Newmont at that time. A couple years later, went full-time, and over the years, just continued to work up, and now it's retirement time.
We'll talk more as we'll get some business out of the way, because that's the one thing about this city police chief is that you are working up to the bitter end. Among that, the things that you're updating policies, which you want that done. So
this has been a long-term, very involved project, and I think people would probably be amazed at how many pages and topics of policies and procedures you are required to have these days. Obviously, liability is always a concern, but ensuring that there's consistency in how we do our business and how things are done, and that they're done properly.
Well, for example, at City Council, they had to approve a near $1 million liability policy. That's for the citywide, for insurance through a pool pact. But liability is why you have to you craft these policies.
Well, and liability takes many forms. Obviously, insurance is one part of it, lawsuits, prosecution against officers. There's all kinds of things that happen. And really your greatest mitigation towards that is having solid policies and procedures. So we had started off by borrowing a policy from Henderson Police Department. We chose their policy and procedure manual because they are CLIA certified law enforcement agency. And for many years have been recognized as a premier agency within the state of Nevada. There were some sections that gratefully we did not have to incorporate. We do not have helicopters. We do not have jails. So that part we didn't have to work on, but encompasses everything, down to animal control, records, evidence, investigations, you name it. So going through, of course, have to append a lot of the procedures specifically to us. They're a much larger agency. They have full, policy and procedure review teams. We don't have a dedicated team that's always doing that, but that is all wrapped up. If the community, I think, might be aware of what Pool Pact is, but basically an entity that helps to mitigate the liability of cities and counties and entities within the state and other states. That has been sent off to Pool Pact. They have a team of folks who are very, very well-versed attorneys. They're well-versed in case law, the specific laws of Nevada, the Ninth Circuit, all those things. As I understand it, it should take them about a month. They don't go through everything. They're looking at the policy specifically, but have their edits come back, get it formalized, then hopefully get it before council and have it approved.
Chief Trouten, this leads right into the next topic, which is a big sigh of relief for you, I think for your department. Everybody who participated in the interviews, that got tough in the replacement process for the new city police chief.
Yeah, so it's always, I guess you'd call it a roll of the dice when you go outside the agency, because you're bringing somebody in who you really don't know much about. So the interviews, both beforehand and before council, very intensive, trying to, ascertain not just qualifications and experience, but also really the character of the individuals and who would be a really great fit for our community here. The council selected Dr. Kyle Ward. I'm very much on board with that choice. Very impressed with this individual. He's, I would just say he's been very active in his life. Start with the education, doctorate, master's, bachelor's, degrees there. He's been in the military, just putting together the ages and times. Looks like he probably joined right out of high school, has worked his way from enlisted to officer corps. He's now a major with the reserves or National Guard. Got several years in with that. He's had a pretty varied career within law enforcement. Much like a lot of our folks, you wear many hats throughout your career, but he's been on, tactical teams. He's been in investigations. He's been on the administrative side of things. And then outside, obviously, family and children, but very involved in his community as well. That gives me great hope that he would continue to do those same things here. I think he's going to be a great asset. One of the things that's always a question is, he's coming from Las Vegas. So he was with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but he was stationed in Laughlin. So he is well versed in the more rural type of law enforcement environment where you do know people, your businesses and the owners, the residents. That speaks volumes to me. That makes me think he's really going to be a good fit here. And then most recently with Las Vegas Department of Public Safety. But yeah, I really think he's the full package. Great individual, very humble, but very knowledgeable. I think he'll be a fantastic leader for our department.
That's, of course, our outgoing City Police Chief Ty Trouten, who is going to be retiring in just a matter of days. Frankly, it's winding down. Talking about incoming Chief Dr. Kyle Ward, and is coming from Las Vegas, as you mentioned. So do you think, well, as you mentioned, he's an academic. I mean, he's got a PhD. I don't think we've ever had a police chief with those kinds of qualifications, Ty.
No, and so I'm a big proponent of education. Our department is a big proponent of education. I don't know that a degree makes a person, but certainly continually learning and obtaining education makes you better, at least more well-versed in different topics. In this case, I believe his doctorate's in management. He's an instructor for criminal justice at one of the colleges down there. I really think he's going to be phenomenal. And like I said, just having a degree doesn't necessarily qualify you, but looking at all of the information with regard to him, I really think it's going to make a huge difference. I think he's going to be phenomenal. And
he wants to be here, and his family wants to move here.
Yeah. Well, and perhaps as our weather heats up, but not as much as Vegas, probably especially right about this time of the year.
And then I guess the last question, is he transitioning now, Chief, or when will we expect to see him actually on the job?
Well, Nevada statutes and so forth required that there has to be background psychological testing, even though he's currently a law enforcement officer in Nevada.
He's post-certified.
Yep, and has all of his post certificates, also impressive. But he still has to go through the background process, which is ongoing at this time. There still has to be psychological medical testing. We're hoping timing works out that we can get him up here at least for 1 week of overlap and such.
That'll be coming up pretty soon. And then I guess we'll start talking with him as well, obviously easing into the position. You do have, staff that's ready to help with this transition. Lieutenant Rick Moore just returned from the FBI Academy. Yeah,
absolutely. So Rick started law enforcement just a couple short months after I did. My opinion, he would make a great chief in and of his own right. However, he's looking at retirement before too long, and he just did not think that taking that position without being able to commit to the long term was the right decision. So as he put it, he's standing ready to help the new chief acclimate to the department, to our community, the area, everything like that. He also is a great individual, just finished with the FBI National Academy, just finished his master's degree here, I believe, this past fall. Very knowledgeable. Again, a lot of varied experience throughout law enforcement. Been a phenomenal just cop over the years. Now, over the years, it's obviously transitioned in its mission and goal, but it combines excellent executive level training, leadership training on the most critical issues facing law enforcement today. The class sizes are generally around 250 students per session, and that includes usually several law enforcement officials from across the world.
But you have to apply. I mean, it's somewhat exclusive.
So it is exclusive. You have to have a minimum level of education even to be accepted. You have to be physically fit in order to be accepted. It's generally about a 2-year waiting list.
Wow.
And then they also generally ask that, once you do graduate, you don't just retire, you stick around for a while so that experience profits the entity and the community that you're in.
What a lot of people worry about, even though they may be doing a fantastic job, they've been with the department a long time, even the community. I mean, do you anticipate changes? And we can talk to Dr. Ward about this, obviously, when he comes in. But
Well, change is inevitable. What you hope for is that the right changes are made at the right time, paced out correctly, things. If you listen to the city council interviews, he actually talked about his 30, 60, 100-day plan. Up to that 100-day point, now you're prioritizing, okay, these are the most critical issues we have. These are the resources we can utilize. What's most important to do right now? And then, of course, start planning out how that change would look. Every chief that comes in, no matter who that is, they're going to affect change. You want them to. If they're just keeping the chair warm and holding the ship steady, they're going to soon find themselves falling behind. So change is inevitable, but reading over his plan, it absolutely was the right thought process. It absolutely shows his knowledge and, I think, experience, his leadership. There will be changes, but I'm very, very convinced that they'll be positive for the department, and I think well received both with the community and with the members of the department.
Well, thanks, Chief. And obviously, we'll be including Dr. Ward. Well, we'll have to start calling him Chief Ward in these conversations. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. So you don't necessarily want to change. You could tweak something that's going well to see if you can even improve on it. But the city police department has had some real big success with the crime suppression unit, right?
Mm-hmm. This was a risk. We had talked about doing it for years. We know from other departments that have similar units, they're very effective. There exists kind of a gap. People are pretty familiar with the roles of, obviously, the patrol officer, pretty familiar with the roles of a detective. But a lot of times, detectives operate out of the office. It's more set for intentional action. You kind of need that hybrid ability where you're out on the streets, you can be seeing things, doing surveillance, acting in real time on the issues that come up. We had held off for many years, even under the previous chief, just because not enough staff to do it. We kind of bit the bullet on that, knowing that it would put some strain on our patrol side, but created that unit. And just in the test phase, it was phenomenally successful. That was made permanent. It's a small unit, but they continue to do great work. I've said many a time, there's a strong nexus between controlled substances, drugs, and stolen property. So they're hitting it now from the stolen property side. We have the Elko Combined Narcotics Task Force hitting it from the drug side. We're seeing a lot of success. Also, thankfully, we still can send people to prison on property crimes, where it's much harder on the drug crimes. So we're removing these people from our community. They are being held to account. It's just not on necessarily maybe some of the drug charges you're used to seeing in years past.
And so, Chief, that brings us to this next topic and it was mentioned even in a public forum about DUI arrest in the community. And, I got to thinking about that. I was like, oh yeah, and there's several different influences that go into making an arrest for someone suspected of DUI. Was initially for suspicion of driving under the influence of alcohol, but now it includes a spectrum of any number of drugs, which are legal.
Well, some drugs are, marijuana, for instance, can be legal if, depending on the amount, where consumed and so forth.
But not legal to drive.
Correct.
Yes.
Now, some of the things that hurt, most people are familiar with what the legal limit for alcohol is, 0.08. If you ask them what the legal limit is for marijuana, you'll probably get a deer in the headlights look. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has not come out with a strict per se amount of nanograms per milliliter in your blood of THC metabolites that would say you're under the influence. They cannot come up with that until there's testing done. That testing would require the federal government to actually make marijuana legal, and then that testing would come out because it now becomes a national problem. They've also, over the years, the changes in the implied consent laws and stuff have made DUIs much more difficult in obtaining of the evidence, be that blood or breath testing. As difficulty rises, so does the time required to do the investigations and complete your reports and get them through. We've talked about staffing issues before for our agency and all the agencies here. You really have to focus on, what are your critical core duties and, what's just basically prioritize them and go down. There are many days when for our officers, they are literally running from one call, starts when their shift comes on, they get the call, they go back, try to get the report completed, and they'll get called out. And it's just a back and forth process all day. That means there's not time for them on many days to be out enforcing traffic laws of any nature, including DUIs. And trying to explain this. The other thing is it becomes much more difficult to prioritize DUI that may take an officer 4 hours to complete one arrest when there's other things going on. We're having, domestics, there's other calls coming in. You can't just say, hey, we're just going to do DUIs and, the next shift can handle all the calls that come in tonight. It doesn't work that way.
Is DUI a problem in Elko or city limits? I mean, should we be dedicating more resources to this?
We should. I wish we had more resources. We talked about trying to stand up the crime suppression unit and the issues with staffing shortages. We would love to stand up a traffic unit. Again, we just struggle. There's people interested in law enforcement, but all too often they are not qualified to be in law enforcement, either because of things they've done in the past or just their ability to, handle themselves, conduct themselves, what their character is. I don't want to say it's really difficult to become a cop, but you do have to be a solid individual, and it's not just a job that you walk in for and start tomorrow. It hurts us. I know it hurts all agencies across the country right now, struggle with it, except in some very, very, very wealthy, affluent areas where they're paying them huge amounts of money to hire on. We're doing our best. We've had, increase in DUI arrests this year. I know the sheriff's office, they face that too. They just had another one this weekend. They've had several in that construction zone. It's a problem because people, this is where my last visit here, I might go off on a rant, but people, I think sometimes are just too dumb for their own good. If you want to go out and drink and enjoy yourself, fine. Be an adult and find a way to get yourself home or get a hotel room or something. I realize we don't have taxis. There's other means to find a way home. And these people just don't pre-plan or think that they're invincible, to that, and they can drive safely, and they're seriously hurting people. I remember being in the academy talking about, for however many DUIs you stop, you've effectively saved a life. And then also another stat was how many times people drive under the influence of alcohol and don't get caught. It's phenomenal. I'm so sick of it and tired of people who just can't get it through their skulls that, honestly, treat it like an attempted murder charge. Now let's see if you want to play. Because certainly losing your driver's license, paying high insurance amounts, paying a lot for attorney's fees doesn't seem to be sufficient in stopping these people from doing stupid things.
So the goal is to get the offenders off the street. Police have been able to do that in many instances if someone is obviously intoxicated, but it sounds as though the procedural process is failing, especially maybe rural communities where we're also facing these staffing shortages. And as you said, if we had the resources and we could hire just for traffic enforcement, because when you think about what you're talking about, DUI, you're also talking, there are people speeding out there and they're causing hazardous, dangerous situations for just people that are trying to just get about in their daily lives. So, go the speed limit or a little above, certainly. But, it really is creating a fearful environment in the community to have all this recklessness.
I don't know what it is. Maybe everybody thinks that they're special, that their lives are more important than anybody else's, or they should, be allowed to break whatever law or, get to their job sooner, whatever it is. It's disheartening because we're having very serious accidents. I mean, to have a rollover accident within the city of Elko should be a rare thing, yet those are on the rise. And of course, you could get into cell phones and distracted driving, everything else that's going on. Our traffic is bad enough as it is just when things flow well. Throw an accident in there. I know they had one out at the roundabout the other day and traffic snarled way back. Just focus on driving.
More to come on this, obviously. And the more people, I don't want to say complain, but obviously step up. If you have concerns, make sure city officials know, make sure county commissioners know, because they're the ones that direct the resources.
But it's like anything else. When you do your budget, you have X amount of money to spend on things, and you have to prioritize what's most important. There's so many things going on. We are down in staff, and there's not a lot of resources. If you've talked to the city staff, county staff, you know that even financial resources have taken a significant hit this year. So it becomes very difficult. And there's nobody out there saying, hey, we just want you to enforce these laws and don't worry about the rest. The public will understand. The public still expects the full package.
Talking with our city police chief, Tyler Trouten. Again, more conversation to come. The city did receive good news at City Council about getting a new robot, and it's quite pricey, so we need to explain so people understand that this was a grant from outside the city. It was a great resource.
Yeah, so this grant It's through a private entity, private foundation. I would go back about 15 years. We received a significant federal grant, which allowed us to form the Regional Bomb Squad. All bomb squads are overseen by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. The training is through the FBI. But that was 15 years ago. I think most people are aware that technology changes very rapidly. So for some of the items, like the one robot we utilize, it is well outside of support from the parent company. They have very limited even physical parts for it, much less some of the more intricate technology items. We went so far as to have one local business here try to fix the physical portions. We utilized the Elko High School Robotics Club to fix some of the things. They did a fantastic job. We just can't get it fully capable. It doesn't quite reach there. So the price tag, nearly $500,000. And our city, being very fiscally responsible, they usually require years of saving up in order to purchase that. To say, hey, we need a new bomb robot. I wasn't laughed out of the room, but I was afraid I was going to be. I mean, it's an expensive item. However, it's very critical. And not just because, it's Elko Police Department Bomb Squad, but because we cover the entirety of Elko County, Lander County, Eureka County, Humboldt County, and White Pine County. That is the entirety of our area of responsibility. And we have a significant amount of found explosives, improvised explosive devices, you name it, things that are stolen from the mines from time to time. That robot is a life-saving device in the fact that it is a piece of hardware that is down there manipulating the device. Without it, we have to put a person in a suit downrange, and that can go quite wrong. This was a very kind and benevolent gift to us in this grant. It's phenomenal. I literally do not think we would have been able to do a new robot for probably 10 years had it not been for this grant.
Well, that's something that you can hang your hat on as you head out the door. Thank you, Chief, for applying for the grant and getting that for us, as you said, about $500,000. Will people get to see the new robot at National Night Out? I know they're going to get to meet some new canine officers, which we always love that.
Well, they'll definitely get to see the new two new canines. As we were just approved last night, we have ordered that robot. I have not been back to the office to see if we have an ETA. It would be phenomenal if we had it by August 5th for National Night Out. One of the things we'd like to do, we'll have to get some sign-offs, but take the old robot, which, like I said, it'll do a couple things. It just doesn't have the range and the reliability, but get that to the Elko High School Robotics Club.
I think they should have
their
it.
skills.
Yeah. So I guess I got through the list of all the things. This is your last radio show. Although something tells me I don't think you're going to be too scarce, because you are involved in the community with the Elks Club, for example, and so we hope that you're planning to stick around and do more things.
Yep, I'm going to be here for quite some time. As it is my final show, I'm going to go off a little bit on a rant.
Well, I will sit back and let you have the microphone.
It's one of the most frustrating things, and sometimes it becomes very acute, where you see individuals who are running for office and they cannot even take the time to become involved in the running of local government beforehand. They want a seat there and they don't even understand who's over what entities or what's going on. But overall, there's a lot of people who are all too happy in person or on social media to complain and voice their opinions about what's wrong. Most of them don't know what they're even talking about. I've always wanted, come out, get involved. I'll be quite honest with you. I was somewhat dismayed when they selected the new chief. We didn't have more of the community present. This is a critical decision. The wrong chief could run a department into the ground and cause all kinds of issues, including liability issues, whereas the right one can make a phenomenal improvement on, what you already have. So along those lines, I want to touch on one more thing. The city of Elko is putting together their 5-year strategic plan. Now, I would love to throw some people's names out there and call them out on it, but I shall refrain. But I see a lot of people who just have such strong opinions, and most of them, they're speaking, but I'm not sure out of which orifice. Can I say that on the radio?
I think that's fair. I gotcha.
The city has several meetings set up, and we want the public to come out. For those folks who maybe don't voice their opinions but are just curious, or maybe they've got an idea that really needs to be heard about some issue that's not come to light. There are 4 meetings set up. The first one is this Thursday. It's going to be from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Elko City Hall in the council chambers. I encourage people to come out. Listen, learn, contribute. This is not a meeting for city staff. This is a meeting for the public. So for all those people who like to, throw out, government by the people, for the people, hey, get your people butt down there and participate. The next meeting will be the following day, Friday the 27th, same time frame. This is going to be, though, in the Turquoise Room at Elko Convention Center. Saturday, another meeting. This one will be earlier in the morning, 10:30 to 12:30. Also in the Turquoise Room Convention Center, later that afternoon from 4 to 6. So if you're out and about Saturday morning or afternoon, get your butts over there and participate. It's really frustrating. Again, I'm going off on rants now, but as a chief, you try to gauge, how you're doing, what's going good and so forth. And it's very hard to get people to participate, be it on online surveys or any of those things. They really need to be heard. I guess I'll just throw it out there and leave it at that. But please, people, come out. This is your community. This is your government. This is your tax dollars. Come out and be part of it.
And you might actually learn something. I mean, that's the other thing. Be a listener for once.
Well,
sitting behind your keyboard, obviously you're not listening, you're not reading, you're just a keyboard warrior.
It's been some time ago, but a mayoral candidate was complaining about, this balloon payment. And why did the city ever sign up for that? Well, the city was not even in charge of that entity. It is its own entity. How can you be a candidate and not even know the facts of what's going on?
Well, unfortunately, and that's one of the downfalls of social media. There are great things about social media, but because anybody from anywhere at any time can post anything they want, and depending on the likes or shares, it gets circulated and then it gets believed. And it's just a complete fallacy. So unfortunately, that's what I deal with every single day, Ty. Same sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, it is very easy to participate from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to get dressed up like they used to in the 50s, 60s, put on your top hat and whatever and go to a city council meeting to be part of that. You can do it from the comfort of your home and see online and view these things. It's there and available. Mm-hmm. Make use of it. Quite honestly, if that's beyond you to do, you probably ought to just keep your fingers from tapping the keyboard and keep your mouth closed.
Or just be prepared, because you get what you give. I'm also a big believer in that, Ty. So, yeah. And speaking of that, really thank you. We can't thank you enough. I think of a friend who was in fire here in Elko for many years before he retired. And I asked him, why are you moving away? Because he was leaving the city, he was leaving the state. And he said, well, because it's hard. Even as a firefighter, a rescuer, there's a memory at almost every house I drive past in Elko over the years.
That is very true. So I'm anchored here for a period of time, but ultimately I probably also will just leave the area for that very problem. As a police officer, you can't have blinders on. You know a lot of things about a lot of people, of what people really are. I would kind of like to be able to, I guess, retrieve some sense of innocence when I go somewhere, and just, if people seem nice, that's good enough. I don't need to really know all about them and so forth. I guess just kind of not have that constantly weighing on you. I think back, there's a certain spot on Idaho Street I drive, and every time I hit it, I think of a 4-year-old who was killed there. A mother who had an addiction problem and just couldn't take the time to properly care for her child. It pains me. This may sound harsh, but you question, why didn't the mother pay for her failures rather than why did the child have to pay that price? And I later got to know the mother, and I obviously feel bad for her. I know it weighs on her stuff, but those memories don't go away. You know a lot of stories, a lot of issues with almost everywhere you look.
Well, we'll never know how safe we are and how many lives you've literally actually saved, not only you just personally as having been a patrol officer and now our police chief who's retiring, but with the leadership in the department. So you've done a wonderful job for us. You're honorable. You care too much. Now it's time to take care of you, Ty. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lori. It's been a pleasure, and I have never regretted being an officer here in Elko. This is, in my opinion, I'm jaded, but the very best place to be a cop in this state or any other. It's a phenomenal community, and so, yeah, it's been a great ride, and I'm going to take it easy for a bit now.
Thanks, listeners, for joining us. That is retiring City Police Chief Ty Trouten.